long-term goal out of this is to become a PE teacher. So for my co-op placement, I was at Westlake Girls High School. So Westlake Girls High School is located in Takapuna, which is also located west of Lake Puke, which is where it got its name from. So originally Westlake was a co-educational school, boys and girls, which was then later broken into two schools, Westlake Girls and Westlake Boys. It's a decile 9 school, which according to the Ministry of Health and Education is a high decile school in New Zealand. It's the largest single-sex school in New Zealand, and the principal is Ros Nixon, which is up there in the corner. So my department that I'm working in is the Health and PE department. The head of the department is Michelle Cleaver, and my supervisor is Lindley Heron, who is the head of health. And also in the department are 8 female PE teachers that teach both health and physical education. So other subjects that fall under health and PE are dance, outdoor education, and advanced physical education. So my roles in the department was basically observing health and PE classes. My main role was organising their health resources. So organising them, putting them into sections, letting the teachers know what they have, what they don't have, and what they need. I'm also assisting in the delivery of health and PE, which is team teaching. So I'm going to talk about my experience, although it might not sound very interesting, it was significant for me. So basically my experience was on the last day of term 1, which feels a lot like it does for a student or any student. It's quite exciting, quite hectic, and there's very little work done on both parts. So on this day there was a teacher who was quite ill. She had a really bad migraine to the point where she had blurred vision and she was lying under her desk. And being the last day of term, she didn't want to go home because there were lots of internals and lots of assignments that needed to be handed in, and so she felt like she needed to be there. So eventually, towards the end of the day, she got asked to leave, and she finally went home, which left 2 periods left of the day that needed to be filled. And as it was last day of term, and there were only 2 periods left, it was almost impossible to get a reliever. So I was sitting there, pretty much the only person in the department, not doing anything, and although technically I wasn't allowed to teach a class on my own, it just seemed silly not to offer. So I put my hand up and said that I could help. After discussing for a while, they agreed to let me do it because my supervisor was teaching a class next door. So they said as long as you popped in and out on me regularly, I'd be fine. So my class basically just needed to finish an activity from the earlier class they had before, and then they needed to watch a video. So all I needed to do was read out a couple of things they had thought about throughout the video. So there wasn't a load of direct teaching, but it was still quite nerve-wracking. And as it was the last day of term, they were very disruptive, so I needed to keep control of the class. So yeah, to me this was a significant experience, because it was the first time I'd been in charge of a class on my own, and I'd also personally never taught adolescent students of that age. So the theory that I've related to it is the cognitive theory. So I'll just give you a bit of background about it. So cognitive is focused on the process of learning, so that people learn from one another through observation, imitation, and modelling. So it consists of social cognitive theory and cognitive behavioural theory. So my focus is the social cognitive theory. So social cognitive theory, as it says here, refers to a psychological model of behaviour that emerged primarily from the work of Albert Bandura. How does this relate to my experience? Well, I learned about this theory in pedagogy and performance, and basically I felt it related to even my whole co-op experience through different elements. The 2 elements that related to this specific experience was observational learning. So here's a small definition up here. It means observing other people being an effective way of gaining knowledge and altering behaviour. So I related it because I've done a lot of observing of health and PE classes, and personally if I hadn't done those class observing, I wouldn't have even put my hand up, because that gave me the knowledge and a little bit of understanding that I'd seen other teachers do as teaching to help me teach in the class. Another one that helped me was self-regulation. So self-regulation has 3 sub-processes: self-observation, self-judgment, and self-reflection. Self-observation reflects a student's ability to monitor or keep track on their behaviours and outcome. Self-judgment is the process through which students evaluate whether their actions are effective. And self-reflection occurs when students respond to the evaluation that they've made, modifying their behaviour. So it sounds like a lot, but when you break it down, I used it by basically self-regulation and self-observation. I really thought about what I'd already learnt, whether I was capable of taking on the class, and then once I'd finished, I used self-judgment and reflection to see whether or not I thought I had done a good job, what I could have done better, and maybe something else that I needed from this placement. So there are two other elements here that I won't go on about because they weren't related to my specific experience, and that was goal setting and interventions. As I said here, I think this is related to the project that we need to do, and goal setting on contract and outcomes. So I'll talk to you quickly about my learning outcomes now, which are to gain a better understanding of the subject health and how it's delivered to senior students, and develop strategies to effectively teach adolescent students. So, my first one, gain a better understanding of the subject health and how it was delivered to students. So, I felt that I achieved this outcome just simply by observing the health classes, which I was doing regularly, and observing gave me an understanding of the topic. So, one topic resilience, that I sat on from beginning to finish, that helped me understand how it was delivered. In the beginning of the topic, they were given activities with definitions of key words, an understanding of the topic, read multiple articles, and then progressed onto an assignment. The assignment was called Managing Change, which aimed to evaluate factors that influence people's ability to manage change. So for the assignment, I had to interview someone who had gone through a significant change. So moving country, parent separation, drug abuse, and they needed to talk about how they managed that change. And they presented that through a report or an oral presentation. So I was lucky enough to see the topic from start to finish, which just basically gave me an overview of how it was delivered and how it was broken down. I've also been working directly with their resources, so I got to see firsthand what resources were given to them, what weren't. One resource I looked at was the sexuality topic, which was basically body parts, labels, definition. So that gave me the understanding that when starting a new topic, they go down to basics. My other outcome was to develop a strategy to effectively teach adolescent students. So this one I feel like is partially achieved by observing, but then I also feel like it needs to be achieved by doing it myself. So I plan on doing some team teaching to achieve this. So put my understanding to work. So the strategy I have worked out with my supervisor is just basically to follow around one classroom, get to know them, and then start team teaching. So for me, my only strategy is just to communicate with my supervisor, because if I don't ask, I won't get and understand that I'm not the main priority. So it's something we've already discussed and we already had planned, but on my part, I just feel I need to be vocal with her, reminder, and communicator with her. So there's no real strategy, then to just be vocal with her. So to conclude, I'll just highlight a couple of things that I've talked about. So I've given you a background of Westlake, which is the largest all-girls school in the country. I've talked about my place in the Health and PE department, my roles as organising resources and observing. I've related my experience of teaching for the first time to the cognitive theory, using thinking to learning, and I've also discussed my learning outcomes. So thank you for listening.